Those rapidly spinning numbers on a gas station pump are now tied to a shift in the mechanics of the global economy. A recent United Nations report found that geopolitical tensions have overtaken trade disputes as the primary driver of global instability. As this chart shows, conflict is now the dominant force disrupting energy markets, financial conditions, and major shipping routes. Usually, we view these crises through a geographical lens, treating the fighting in Ukraine, Sudan, and the Congo as isolated fires contained within their own borders. The International Committee of the Red Cross views their work in over 100 active conflicts as part of 4 converging trends. These are not isolated events. They are points of a structural destabilization that ripples across global shipping and food markets. Modern conflicts are proving remarkably difficult to extinguish, even with intense international mediation. In May 2026, the U.S. brokered a 3-day ceasefire in Ukraine, which was publicly messaged as the beginning of the end of the 4-year war. Diplomatic signals initially appeared optimistic. Following Moscow's Victory Day events, Vladimir Putin signaled the war might be ending, agreeing to a formal prisoner exchange. However, trust remains non-existent. While the paper agreement existed, strikes continued, and Ukrainian leadership maintained a true ceasefire had not been reached. This data shows the human cost of the stalemate. Since 2022, an estimated 350,000 Russian and 140,000 Ukrainian fighters have been killed. Despite that 500,000 casualty count, the map shows marginal territorial gains, illustrating how high-profile wars grind into unbreakable lulls. While the world watches Ukraine, the civil war in Sudan has become the conflict most likely to intensify in 2026, according to the Council on Foreign Relations. The war between Sudan's armed forces and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces has dismantled the country's infrastructure and created a massive humanitarian vacuum. A blockade of humanitarian aid has left the entire population facing high levels of food insecurity. Sudan is now home to one of the largest displacement crises on the planet, with millions of people forced from their homes. International silence on Sudan hasn't contained the violence. Instead, the lack of attention has allowed the conflict to escalate, spilling over borders and targeting civilians without accountability. This absence of international accountability is also driving a geopolitical land grab in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Rwandan President Paul Kagame has utilized proxy rebel forces to effectively annex the North and South Kivu provinces, expanding his influence across the Congolese border. These proxy armies operate in a legal gray zone. Recently, authorities reported 34 civilians killed by armed groups in eastern DRC in just 3 days. The consequences are regional. Violence from Sudan has bled into Chad, killing Chadian soldiers, while fighting in the south has forced 200,000 people to flee into Ethiopia. These crossing lines show that modern armed conflict doesn't respect international borders. Regional exploitation in the DRC and Sudan eventually breaks through containment lines, dragging neighboring countries into the violence. This global instability marks a departure from the 1990s, an era characterized by comprehensive, high-stakes peace agreements that effectively settled regional conflicts. Today, those lasting settlements have been replaced by unstable lulls. These are periods where active fighting stops, but no underlying issues are resolved, leaving the conflict ready to reignite at any moment. International bodies are increasingly unable to enforce treaties or hold warring parties to their word, leaving these lulls as the only remaining form of peace. Relying on these temporary pauses creates a permanent, simmering threat to the global order, as no conflict is ever truly resolved, only paused. When international rules are routinely ignored in places like Sudan and Ukraine, it creates a global environment where major powers feel emboldened to weaponize essential supply chains. We see this erosion of norms at the Strait of Hormuz. Because the rules governing international waters are being tested elsewhere, this oil shipping lane has become a primary lever in nuclear negotiations between the US and Iran. The breakdown of these global rules is now the primary driver of acute food insecurity for nearly 140 million people. When conflict disrupts trade, the cost is measured in basic survival. This systemic failure to resolve war ensures that the cycle of global displacement remains a permanent feature of the modern landscape. This is the reality of a structurally destabilizing world. localized fighting is no longer isolated. It is the engine driving global food shortages, volatile energy prices, and a permanent cycle of displacement that impacts every economy on the map.